Hey y'all, this is Willie from Fungi Ally. Today we're going to go over the 10 most common questions that come up with mushroom growing kits. So there's a lot of different kinds of mushroom growing kits. Here we have 5 different varieties of mushrooms fruiting. And these are amazing because you get them and they're just ready to pop. So it's a really fast, easy way to grow mushrooms at home, inside, outside, and you can grow a lot of different species this way. So this is a great beginning to getting familiar with mushrooms, getting them in the kitchen, getting people interacting, touching, smelling, engaging with mushrooms. And we sell grow kits on our website, fungially.com, and we'll walk through these 10 most common questions. And hopefully by the end, you'll have a really good understanding of how the mushrooms work, what's in a grow kit, how you would handle it when you get it, through the whole growing process, and then, harvesting and beyond that point. So what is in a mushroom growing kit? So basically a grow kit is mycelium grown out on sawdust and other additives, usually soybean hulls, sometimes wheat bran, particularly with shiitake. And you can see the white fuzzy material is the mycelium. And in here is a bunch of sawdust that has gone through a process of being sterilized and inoculated with mycelium, and then the mycelium grows through the entire block. And once it grows through that entire block, it's ready to fruit. So we do that whole process with all these different mushrooms, and then it gets to you. And at that point, it's ready to create mushrooms. And basically the mushroom is the reproductive stage of the fungal life cycle. One of my teachers likes to call a mushroom a temple of copulation. It's the place where sexual reproduction happens. So that's the whole point of the mushroom. And it's easy, relatively easy, to grow the mushrooms once you have this fully colonized block of mycelium. So because it's a living product, it's really important to take care of it when you get it. We don't keep a huge inventory or backstock of these because they are living products, so sometimes it takes a little while to ship. But when you receive the grow kit, you either want to initiate it in the next day or two or place it in the fridge. Pink oyster is the one exception to this. Don't put pink oyster in the fridge because it'll die off. But all the other species, if you're not going to start fruiting them right away, put them in the fridge, and they're good to just kind of hang out there and be dormant and do their thing for about 3 weeks. So one of the things you can do if you want to, stagger when you're getting your mushrooms is you can buy 5 grow kits at once and then put them in a fridge and initiate one every single week. So once you have the mushroom block and it's either just arrived or you're taking it out of the fridge, where would you want to put it? Really anywhere in a mild house is great. Temperatures anywhere from 55 up to 75 degrees, the mushrooms really do well in. The biggest thing is you don't want direct sunlight. So on a kitchen counter or living room shelf or even in the bathroom next to the shower is great. Just don't put it in like a south-facing windowsill, because if it's getting direct sunlight, the mushrooms are going to dry out. The biggest challenge when making these grow kits is keeping it humid. So your biggest job is keeping the bag and the environment around the mushrooms humid for the mushrooms to grow out. So relatively cool place, and a place with some light but not direct sunlight. They don't want total dark. The concept of feed mushrooms shit and keep them in the dark only applies for button mushrooms and magic mushrooms. All the other beautiful, amazing, medicinal, gourmet mushrooms need some mild lighting to grow properly. All right, so you've got your kit, you know where it's going to go, and now you're ready to initiate it. So this is introducing the right environmental conditions for the mushrooms to grow. And depending on the mushroom species, you're going to initiate it a little bit different. So we come over here. This one here is chestnut. It's a brown cap and stem mushroom, and it has these really beautiful white ornamentations on it. I think that's where it gets the chestnut name. I wouldn't recommend cutting this way. So this is a top cut, right? And it leaves a little collar of the bag to help with humidity. But you can see here, when you look at this mycelium, it's pretty dried out, right? So it's kind of leathery and it's not very fluffy, aerial. So if you initiate in this way, then you really need to be on top of spraying and keeping it humid. What's better for chestnuts is similar to oyster mushrooms, where you cut like a slit right across the broad side of the bag. So if this was laying down like this, you would just cut a slit right there. And then the mushrooms fruit out of that slit. So that's how I'd recommend doing the chestnuts. One mushroom that is good to do this way is king oysters. And I like to keep the bag up maybe 7-8 inches above the line of the substrate or the grow kit material, just for a nice microclimate for the king oysters to grow up into. So that's our chestnut. Next up here, we've got our lion's mane. Lion's mane is more of a fuzzy, kind of bearded mushroom. And you can see we actually have it in 3 different stages here, which is really cool. This is the youngest one, and you can't really see the spines yet, and it kind of has this pinkish color to it, right? And then a little bit older is this one here, where you can see the spines. There's a differentiation in the spines. It's a nice white coloring, but the spines are pointing straight out. And then lastly, we have this one here, where the spines start to turn down towards the ground. They're geotropic, I think is the word, where they respond to the pull of gravity, so they're always pointing down towards the ground. And this is when you want to harvest the lion's mane, is when it gets to this point. And sometimes with grow kits, you have mushrooms that are at different stages on the kit. So you could go ahead and harvest this and leave these 2 to further develop. Anyways, when you're initiating lion's mane, I like to do little V cuts in the bag. So a lot of times there's some material on the top of the bag here with lion's mane, and you just want to fold the bag over and keep it on the underside, and then lay it down to keep that kind of tight and keep the air out. And then you cut little V's in the bag here, or maybe a longer slit right there. I'd say 2 on the broad side. You can also do 1 on the narrower side. And then the mushrooms just fruit out of those V's. Okay, so that's our lion's mane. Our oysters, other than king oyster, we're cutting that a long slit, maybe even an X in the broad side of the bag. So again, just kind of folding the top of the bag over, putting that to keep it closed, and then cutting an X in the bag. And when you're cutting, it's totally fine to cut into the grow kit a little bit. The mycelium is so resilient, it will just regrow and kind of move on, and no harm, no foul. We can see here with the blue oysters, what happens is as they grow and expand, they just push that plastic X back, right? So they just fruit out and they just push the plastic back, and they're good to erupt. And when they're small and they really need humidity, the plastic acts as this little microclimate to keep them doing safe and doing well. And then shiitake, the last one, this is a different way. Actually, shiitake does best when it's cold shocked. So no matter what, when you get shiitake, put it in the fridge for 12 to 24 hours. And then you just take the bag completely off. So you have the bag completely off. If you want to, you can leave a little cup or something down here. You can cut the bag and leave this part just so any excess water or anything pools in there. And then put it on the counter just like that. And with this, it's really important for the first 3 to 5 days to keep it really humid. So that's our initiation process for the different mushroom species. As you're growing the mushrooms out, the biggest thing is just to keep misting them. So you want to mist 2-3 times a day. And when you're misting, you don't need to get water into the substrate. There's plenty of water in the substrate. What you want is to get the environment that the mushrooms are fruiting into humid. So mist it once, twice, 3 times a day, and just nothing crazy. You can't really over mist. just give it a good misting. And other thing is to watch the mycelium, so if the mycelium's looking like the chestnut that we saw earlier, maybe apply a little bit more. And if you find that your grow kit is drying out, one of the good things to use is like a bin like this. So you can just take, this is an 18-gallon storage bin. A 5-gallon bucket would work pretty well as well, with especially these ones that are top fruiting. And you just take this and put it right in the bin in the middle, and you can put the top on like halfway, kind of cracked, so it's still getting some oxygen. And there you go. You have your mushroom in here, and you mist the whole inside of the bin and the mushroom block itself, and that creates a little microclimate. And I'd say probably two blocks would fit into something like this. All right, and now we've made it to the part of harvesting. So when do you harvest? How do you harvest? That's always an exciting part. Oh my God, I think the mushrooms are ready. Yes, let's have them. What you want to look for is kind of the cap margin. When it starts to get wavy and kind of flipped up like that, it's a little bit past the ideal harvest stage. This one here, where the cap margin is still curled in a little bit, I like to say kind of like the curl of your ear. That's the ideal time to harvest. And with oysters, you're just going to kind of grab a bundle and wiggle it and pull it right off. And there you go. We have our harvest. When we do harvest, here's our oysters. You want to kind of make sure there's not a lot of dead material on the grow kit. So just kind of take the time to pick off anything else. Make sure it gets down. And it's okay if you get a little bit of substrate coming up with the mushrooms. That's no problem. Now with the lion's mane, we talked about this a little bit before, but when the spines are cascading down, that's the time that you want to harvest. So I'll just take this mushroom, kind of wiggle it and pull it right off. And there we go. Same thing, make sure all the little dead pieces, all the little pieces of mushroom are out, and then you have your beautiful little mushroom here. Perfect. Now with shiitake, you want to look on the underside, look at the gills on the underside, and once you can see the gills, basically it's good to harvest. Again, curl similar to your ear. When they get really flat or even flipped up, they're past maturity, and they're going to kind of go bad faster, and they won't taste as good. So it's good to get them when they have this nice curl under, and you can just pull the mushrooms right off with your hands, or if you want, you can use scissors to cut them. So I would just go through, and usually there's kind of like a 2-3 day window when the mushrooms are ready to harvest. So ones that are still closed, you would just leave to grow for another day. And it's not necessarily about size. Sometimes they're small and they're ready, sometimes they're big and they're ready. You really want to just, once the gills are visible and the cap is opened up, time to harvest with shiitake. So one of the questions that we get is, what do you do when the grow kit dries out? Sometimes life gets away from you. You're not like, oh, I gotta miss my kit. You forget for a couple days. So what do you do if it dries out? You can get a bin or put it in some sort of other small space that gets the humidity higher. If the mushrooms have started fruiting and then have aborted, you'll just want to kind of give them, maybe a week to get energy back and be ready to fruit again. So just take off any of the dead little pins, if they've gone brown or anything like that, and start again in about a week. The other thing to do, if you live in a climate where there is rainfall, or you see in the forecast there's going to be a couple of days that are cloudy, or the temperature's dropping and it's going to be wet, put your grow kit right outside. Nature is the best at growing mushrooms. She is so good at it. So if you just put the grow kit out in the shade, under a tree, or on the north side of a building, when the time is right, it'll fruit really, really abundantly. This is also a really good way to start a second flush, is if you fruit it once inside and it does really, really well, then the second time you can put it outside and just kind of let Mother Nature take her time and have the mushrooms fruit when they want to fruit. For the second flush, generally the mycelium needs 2 to 3 weeks to recharge and be able to fruit mushrooms again. So this is a huge, fruiting mushrooms is a huge output of energy for the mycelium. So after it fruits, it's putting enzymes into the wood and breaking down the wood, getting more energy, filling up its reservoirs, and then in 2 or 3 weeks it'll be ready to fruit and produce mushrooms again. So you can leave it exactly where it was and just let it hang out, and then in 2 weeks start misting again, and hopefully the mushrooms start fruiting. Or you can kind of relocate it, put it outside, let it hang out there for a month, and when heavy rains come it'll fruit. Or you can put it in a cabinet for 2 weeks and then take it back out and start fruiting the process again. That 2-week window doesn't really have any particular parameters needed. You don't need to be misting it. It shouldn't be in direct sunlight, but otherwise nothing special needed. So that's kind of the rhythm for the second and third flush, as you harvest, let it rest for 2 or 3 weeks, and then start misting again, and hopefully the mushrooms pop again. And they'll just keep doing that until they're out of food in their grow kit. So they've eaten all the sawdust, and there's not really enough energy to continue to fruit again. So once you've gotten all the mushrooms that you can out of the grow kit, what do you do with it? Well, there's lots of different things that you can do with it. Probably the easiest is to compost it. So you can add it into any sort of vegetable scraps or leaf litter or however your composting system is, and it'll just break down. Worms really, really love to eat mycelium, so it'll attract earthworms and get more earth castings into your compost. It's also a pretty high carbon ratio, so a lot of food scraps and stuff are pretty nitrogen rich, so this acts as a good balancing in the composting system. With oysters particularly, you can also kind of continue to expand the mushrooms. So adding them in, breaking up the block and adding it into a pile of wood chips that's kind of like leveled out, maybe 3 or 4 inches thick, is a great way to possibly get more mushrooms. You can also just bury it in wood chips. So you just kind of mound wood chips around it, take the plastic completely off, mound wood chips around it. And this just allows the mycelium to grow out a little more into the wood and have enough moisture to maybe fruit again. So those are a couple of options that you can do once you finish the grow kit. But definitely take the plastic off, throw it away, and get this somewhere where it can break down, and maybe you can keep harvesting mushrooms from it. So you can use this as spawn, like I was saying, but it's not always guaranteed success. So another thing that we sell is plug spawn, and this is sterilized plugs that have mycelium grown out on it. And these are, specialized for the for growing as spawn. So it's better if you're growing a lot to buy something specially made as spawn. But if you just want to kind of try something in your garden or have wood chips around, you can totally use this grow kit, take the mushrooms off, break it up into little pieces, and use it as spawn for a further project. So the last question we get all the time is, do you guys sell magic mushroom grow kits? And as cool as that would be, it's completely illegal. So with magic mushrooms, psilocybin, the compound psilocybin, is illegal. And you can find that in the mushrooms and the mycelium. So it's illegal to have or sell psilocybin mushrooms or mycelium, but you can't find it in the spores. So that's why on the internet you can find psilocybin mushroom spores for sale. But no one sells, and we definitely don't sell, myceliated magic mushroom grow kits. So now you're loaded up with tons of knowledge of how to receive and use and care for, and then get rid of or further grow mushrooms from a mushroom growing kit. Head on over to our website, fungially.com, and get a grow kit for yourself today.